Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about augmenting your gear because I've realized a lot of people do not know how to augment properly or how gear progression in this game actually works. And so I'm going to be giving you guys pretty much a roadmap so that you can follow this step by step in order to understand what you should be farming for and what you should be aiming for in order to progress and get stronger in this game. But before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. Alright, so the very first thing I want to showcase is I actually went out of my way to build all of these armors from the beginner armor that you get for free. I didn't have to build that, but I did build a full-on mid-tier armor set over here, and of course my fully geared out endgame set, so that now you guys will be able to see from the timestamps below, this is the beginner gear, the mid-tier gear, and then the endgame gear. Alright, so depending on where you are in your progression in NGS, you can just skip to whatever timestamp. But with that being said, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is going to be, of course, the beginner gear. So at the very beginning, your number one priority is to blast through the main storyline. When you complete the entire story, you're going to get a bunch of free gear at certain checkpoints. And when you complete everything, you get the Epheson armors for free over here. As you can see, there's 3 pieces of Epheson armors, and they give you decent stats at 26.9% all potency, 85 HP, and 22 PP. Now, as for the weapon, you will have an Argent Cool weapon. Again, this is free, you get it immediately, it's fully enhanced, everything is done for you. And as you can see from its stats, it gives you 22.6% all potency. Now, in today's video, we're mainly going to be focusing on the Slayer, because I think Slayer is one of the most popular classes, so I'm going to be pretty much showing you what augment you guys should be aiming for if you are a Slayer main. However, the concept applies to all of the classes because basically the only thing that changes is pretty much like one augment. But anyway, let us take a look at our stats right now. So as you can see, I am currently Slayer main class. You can see I'm not even level 95, by the way, so certain stats still have room to grow, by the way, including my HP and my PP and a lot of other stuff. And you can already see that I have 151.1% melee potency, range potency, as well as technique potency. Remember, in yesterday's video, I talked about it's very important to understand what type of potency your weapon uses. For those who did not watch that video, all you need to do is highlight your weapon, and over here on the left side of its name, there is a little picture. This is a blue background, which means that it scales off range potency. If it has an orange background like this katana, that means it needs melee potency, and if it's a yellow background, it means it scales off technique potency. Alright, so that's very important to understand what potency you actually need. Now, luckily for us, the Argent Cool weapons as well as the Epheson armors just give us all potency, so you don't even need to care about it because literally it just gives you everything. However, the problem over here is, of course, our damage is relatively low and our potency is also relatively low, but this is the starter gear. This is the gear that you get for free by simply completing the main storyline. So this is your baseline. Now, after you complete the main storyline and you want to move into mid-game, what is the next thing you should upgrade? Your number one priority is going to be your weapon. You want to upgrade to an Exalio weapon. You do obtain these weapons simply by running Nameless City, by running Lucille Exploration, and just farming in combat zones. Literally, these weapons are very, very easy to obtain. Now, you can also purchase these off the player market if you want to for very cheap as well, if you just need the weapon and you have a little bit of meseta to spend. However, keep in mind that during the early stages of the game, let's say you just completed the main storyline, meseta is incredibly valuable. It is not super easy to make a bajillion meseta without sinking in a lot of time to grind. So personally, I do not recommend buying a weapon. Personally, I would recommend for you to just grind, do Nameless City as many times as you need, grind in a combat zone as long as you need in order to get your own Exalio weapon. But it's not that hard. You will be able to obtain an Exalio weapon relatively easily. Now, if you're watching this video in December when we have the seasonal event already available, you can buy Exalio weapons from the seasonal shop. Alright, so you literally skip this entire step, go to the seasonal shop, grab your weapon, and then enhance it all the way to plus 90, and you're good to go. You know, you just skip the whole finding my weapon situation. Now, it's very important that you do enhance your weapon to plus 90 because it unlocks all of your augment slots, and more importantly, it increases your attack stat. Your attack stat is very, very important as all of your damage scales off this number over here. So you need to make sure that it is all the way at enhancement level 90 so that this number is at its potential maximum. Now, the reason why I recommend the Exalio weapon specifically is because this weapon has an upgrade path. You can upgrade your Exalio weapon into a Duo Salio weapon and then into a Tri-Salio weapon, which is going to be your endgame weapon for now. All right. Now, as for your armors, you're going to be aiming for Ecstasis armors. Again, Ecstasis armors are purchasable off the player market for pretty cheap, but at the very beginning, you are going to be hurting for Meseta, so you might not be able to afford it, or you might not want to waste your Meseta on these armors. But nevertheless, we're going to equip these armors over here, and then we're also going to equip our weapon as well. And now when we look at our stat information, you can see our stats have increased dramatically. We are now at 1,188 HP. This does go up to like 1,200-ish if I was level 95. We also have a whopping 246 PP. We have 81% damage adjustment, and we have 211 range potency, which is the important one because again, we are playing a Slayer. Because we're playing a Slayer, we're using a Gunblade. That is the only weapon we can use. So range potency is the only potency that you should care about if you are playing a Slayer. Now, all the other stats over here, these are just nice to haves. You know, this is a lot of resistances, an absolute buttload of it for no real reason, but our stats have increased dramatically. However, enough of me bragging about the stats, let's actually look at the augments themselves. So your weapon is super easy. When you get an Exalio weapon, it will not have any EX augments on them. You're gonna need to get a regular Aerodin weapon that does have EX augments, and you can transfer these EX augments onto your Exalio weapon at no real cost. It costs 10,000 Meseta. However, it does not require an augment transfer pass. It does not require anything. And the best thing is you can switch out these EX augments anytime you want. So I'm actually going to go to the shop right now to show you how this works. So when we head over here to the item lab, you can actually go straight here to augment transfer, EX augment transfers, select your main weapon, which is of course your Gunblade, and you can see right here the Aerodin weapon shows up and it will change your EX augments to whatever the Aerodin's EX augments are. However, as we can see here in my all storage, I have other weapon. I have an Aerodin with these EX augments that I can also exchange them for, and you're able to do it with any Aerodin weapon at no cost, in the sense that you don't need an augment transfer pass. You do need 10,000 Meseta, but it's not that big of a deal. So at the very beginning, it's not that important to find the right EX augments for your Gunblade, because literally you can change it whenever you want. Whenever you do get that perfect trifecta EX augments, you can switch it out whenever. All right, and it does not affect any of your other augments, all of your expensive augments that you might have placed onto your weapon. Now, speaking about the other augments, you want to use an Addy capsule. Now, a lot of people are going crazy in the comment section below already, going like, oh my god, Karo, how are you advising people to get an Addy capsule? These are like, you know, stupid pay to win capsules. It's not that bad right now because there currently is a banner going on. However, it's very important that you check the different prices, especially the ward capsules tend to be a little bit cheaper. As we can see over here, the one that I bought was the Ward Mel Raw, and if we look at the prices, it was 850,000. Now keep in mind, this is 850,000 for a 100% success rate. All right, there's zero gambling involved. You don't need 10 of these capsules. You just need one, and boom, you can just place it into your armor, boom, into your weapon, into whatever. There is zero gambling involved. And the best thing is it gives you 5% potency. All right, this is what you really want. That 5% potency is very powerful. Now, with that being said, the next thing that you want is going to be Gladius Soul, as well as Hal Finale and Mega Triel. Your weapon is the easiest to augment because you only need to focus on 4 augments, as 3 of the EX augments you don't really care about. You can literally put any EX augments because you only want the EX augments for its raw damage. As you can see, all of these EX augments have a potency plus 4.5%, which is absolutely massive. Now, later down the line, of course, you want to fine tune this for your personal playstyle. Like if you look at my katana over here, I've got Tri-Shield X, Tough Mind X, and Enemy Fell PP Gain X, which caters to my personal playstyle. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what EX augments you use, it's just up to you. Whatever enhances your playstyle, whatever makes your life easier, is a good EX augment. And with all of those augments combined, we get a grand total of 33.8% range potency. Now, you might have noticed that the technique potency is a little bit lower, and the reason for this is because of the Addy capsule. We needed to save money, so we didn't need all potency, we just needed that 5% range potency. So literally you can just look at all the different Addy capsules and see which one's the cheapest that gives you the potency that you actually need. So let's say, for example, you play katana, then you need melee potency. If you're playing a force with a rod, then you need technique potency. And so you just have to be the best judge for yourself, and you need to shop around in order to find the right prices. Now, if you are watching this video like a month later or 2 months later and you're like, oh my god, the Addy prices, even the cheapest one is like 5 million, 8 million, whatever, don't worry, they always do reruns of these banners. You just have to wait, be a little bit patient. When they do a rerun, then you can purchase these for dirt cheap. And in the meantime, just put a filler augment there, just anything that gives you the highest amount of potency while you don't have an Addy capsule yet. However, now moving on to our armors are a little bit more complicated because well, you actually have to deal with 7 augments, because our armors do not have EX augments. You can't just slap in 3 random EX augments and only have to deal with 4 normal augments. Unfortunately, with the armors, you have to deal with all 7. Now, the very first thing you want to do is you want to get your Ecstasis armors. The Ecstasis armors are very similar to the Exalio armors in the sense that they are upgradable as well. You can upgrade your Ecstasis armor into your Dostasis armors, and then your Dostasis armors into your Trestasis armors, which are the current best in slot. However, before you can do that, it is very important that you get your armors to at least enhancement level 81. The reason you need to do this is because at enhancement level 81 is when you unlock the 7th augment slot, and you need all 7 augment slots in order to maximize your damage and maximize just all of your different augments. All right, it's very, very important. So as you can see in the example that I'm using right now, I have 1 armor all the way at plus 90, and I have 2 armors at plus 81. The reason again is because you don't have to get it all the way to plus 90, as it just increases your defense stat. However, do understand that if you are dying all the time, you might want to get all of your armors to plus 90 so that you're just a little bit tankier and that you don't just implode the moment you see Darkfall's Dalian. Now, with that being said, let us jump into the augments. So again, we are using the Addy Ward Melraz on all 3 of our armors because they were the cheapest one that had the right potency or the range potency so that it would benefit my Slayer. Now, as for the other augments, we are using Gladiusol, Gigas Maste, Hal Finale, High Kavars Domina, Dreadkeeper 5, and Mega Triel. You don't have to use Dreadkeeper 5, however, something that I have noticed, especially for a lot of newer players, is you are dying a lot. Especially when it comes to the newer Urgent Quest, for example, with the Darkfall Solace, everyone keeps dying. And the reason for this is because you guys have this mentality of, hey, I'm good at the game, I'm gonna build Glass Cannon, and I'm just gonna dodge everything. I do not recommend that playstyle at the very beginning, when you're still gearing up, when you're still progressing, when you're still learning. It's better to survive and see all of the different attacks that the boss throws at you, and then later down the line, when you're min-maxing, then you can customize your build and your playstyle to fit whatever you want. But at the mid game, we are still learning. You've only played the game for a week or 2 or even a month, and you're still trying to grasp and understand how certain mechanics work. It's important to survive to see how these mechanics work. So this is why I recommend Dreadkeeper 5, even though it does not provide any damage. If we look at Dreadkeeper 5, it literally just gives you 60 HP, 12 PP, 8% potency floor increase, as well as 3.5% damage resistance. It is all defensive stats. But again, the reason I recommend this is because this will help you survive, so you can see all the different attacks, understand what do I need to do to survive, to deal with all of these different situations, and that way you can learn, evolve, and get better at the game. Versus if you're just dead on the floor, well, you can't see shit because you're dead on the floor. And so this is why I recommend using Dreadkeeper 5. Now, this is just my personal opinion. You don't have to listen to me, and you can play however the hell you want. However, I want to warn you that people will notice if you keep dying in an urgent quest. In an urgent quest, the people that I notice the most is the person that I have to revive 5-6 times. Then I'm like, okay, this guy's clearly struggling. And then I'll note down their name in case I meet them next time. And if they're still dying, you know, that raises a couple question marks. But now that you've obtained all of these augments and you hit mid-game, what is next? Well, the final step is, of course, endgame. So endgame is going to take you significantly longer to obtain, as a lot of these augments are very, very troublesome to farm for and will require a lot of time investment. But nevertheless, let me just show you what the stats look like. As you can see, this is my endgame augments right here. We currently have 1,477 HP because, again, my Slayer is not maxed out. It's still level 85 and not 95. I'm actually going to show you this by switching my class, and you're going to see my HP skyrocket. We're just going to go change class. We're actually going to change our Braver to the main class. Now, there is some variation because it's a melee class versus a range class. Melee classes do get bonus HP, but you get the idea. Just because I boosted 10 levels, you can see that my HP did increase to 1,666, and this is my final build, my final form, and we're looking at 305% potency. All right, so again, this is because this is built for Braver and not for Slayer, but just imagine that this 305 was over here, that it was for range, and just pretend that my Braver class was actually Slayer and it was just flipped around, all right? Because I'm not going to be building full endgame stuff for Slayer, as I do not actually main the Slayer. But with that being said, let us look at the augments for our true endgame. So first of all, the true endgame is having the correct EX augments that cater to your playstyle. So for me, I like to be a little bit more on the tanky side. So Tri-Shield X is very, very useful in the sense that you literally get 3 shields that take damage for you. So basically you can get hit 3 times without actually taking any damage. Tough Mind X is a cheat death, so when something's supposed to kill you, you survive on 1 HP. And then there's enemy felled PP gain, and this is whenever I kill an enemy or if an enemy close to me dies, I restore 6 PP. So this is really, really nice to have, and it fits my playstyle perfectly. Now, as for the other augments, we do have an Anati capsule, which you already had in your mid game, so you don't need to upgrade this, you're done. The second augment we have is Gland Gigas Maste. We did upgrade this, so as we can see from our previous weapon, we had a Mega Trial. We changed the Mega Trial into a Gland Gigas Maste in order to earn additional stats, as well as have that extra HP so that we're a little bit tankier. Personally, I still prefer to use Gland Gigas Maste. However, you don't have to use it. You can go with Grand Dreadkeeper 2 if you want. It's really up to you, up to personal playstyle. All right. Then we have Grand Gladia Soul and Lux Hal Finale. But you're going to notice that there's a trend over here. You can see here that we had Hal Finale and then we had Gladia Soul. And when we look at our true endgame, we have Lux Hal Finale and Grand Gladia Soul. You're going to notice that the augments are essentially the same, except it's got a prefix in the front now. So for example, our Gladia Soul has been upgraded into a Grand Gladia Soul. Our Hal Finale has been upgraded into a Lux Hal Finale. And you're going to notice that this is going to be a trend with our armors. So again, our weapon is a lot easier. You may have noticed that we have upgraded to a Trisalio weapon. You can actually do that with your Exalio weapon. When you come to the item trader over here, you can see at the very bottom there is equipment upgrade, where you can actually upgrade your Exalio weapon into a Dual Salio, and then after that you can upgrade it into a Trisalio. All right, so your weapons are fully upgradable, so you're going to be upgrading your Exalio Gunblade all the way into a Trisalio Gunblade. Okay, and then of course you're going to be fixing up all these augments one at a time. You don't have to do all of these upgrades at once. I recommend that you upgrade these augments augments one at a time progressively. That way it's obtainable and you can constantly upgrade and get stronger progressively instead of saving up all of your augments and doing it all at once, because usually it takes months to gather everything. Now with that said, let us move on to the armor. So our true endgame augments for our armors is going to be again an Anaddy capsule, which you already have on your Ecstasis armors. You had your Anaddy Ward Mel Raw, so you don't need to touch that. That's already considered true endgame. However, you're going to notice a lot of suffixes over here. Our Gladiusol has been upgraded to a Grand Gladiusol. Our Gigas Mastae has been upgraded into a Gland Gigas Mastae. Our Halfinale has been upgraded to a Lux Halfinale. Our Domina is still the same, except we've just upgraded to a Hystera Domina. However, honestly, it doesn't really matter which high Domina you use because they all give the same amount of potency. However, the Hystera Domina gives the most amount of potency floor. And if you guys remember from yesterday's video, potency floor is basically the variance of the damage. You want to have really high potency floor so that you're not at the mercy of RNG when you're dealing damage against enemies. And then, of course, we're going to be upgrading our Mega Trials to Giga Trials. And then we're going to be adding in a Grand Dreadkeeper 2 instead of just regular Dreadkeeper 5. Because Grand Dreadkeeper 2 gives us the HP, gives us the PP, gives us the floor potency, the damage resistance. All of this stuff was available in Dreadkeeper 5. However, on top of that, we're also gaining potency. So we're gaining additional damage. However, Grand Dreadkeeper 2 does take a little bit of time to craft and a little bit of time to farm, which is why in the mid game I recommended the normal Dreadkeeper, as this is very easy to obtain and relatively inexpensive on the player market. So in conclusion, at the very beginning, you want to get your regular Epheson armors as well as your Argent Cool weapon. You're going to get this for free as you're progressing through the main storyline. You're going to use it until you complete the entirety of the story. Once that is done, you want to upgrade your Argent Cool weapon into an Exalia weapon, as well as your Epheson armors into Ecstasis armors. Once that is done, you're going to try to get your armors as well as your weapons all the way to enhancement plus 90. Remember, the weapon is more important than the armor in enhancement level because it increases your attack value, okay? All of your damage is dependent on this attack value right here. Once that is done, then you start working on your augments. As you can see here, you get your 3 EX augments through any Aerodym weapon. You can just transfer them on, and then you get your 4 mid-game capsules right here for your weapon. And then for your armors, you get your 7 mid-game augments over here. Again, Dreadkeeper 5 is optional. However, I prefer that you stay alive and you learn from all the experience rather than just dying because you're glass cannon. Now, once you're done with all of that, you're going to be evolving all of your armors and your weapons into the Tristasis armors, and then your weapon's going to evolve into the Trisalia weapon. Once that is done, then you're hunting for the perfect EX augments for your weapon, as well as all of the endgame augments with their prefixes, such as your Gran, your Glan, and your Luxes. Once that is done, then you start focusing on your armor. Exactly the same thing here. You start upgrading all of your regular augments with all the ones with their prefixes, such as the Gran, Glan, Lux, High, Giga, as well as Grand. All right, so you're going to be upgrading all of these, and eventually you will be able to get to endgame. However, again, to get to this stage, it will take you months unless you grind a lot and you burn yourself out. Do not rush this process. I recommend upgrading one augment at a time and take your time, enjoy the process. And when you're not having fun, that is the time to take a step away from the game and just take a break. It's very, very easy to burn yourself out in this game because of how tedious it is to farm for all the materials and all the things needed, especially to make all of the ultimate endgame augments. Like, if you're farming for your Grand Gigas Mastaes, when you're farming for your Giga Trials, when you're farming for your Grand Dreadkeeper 2s, just all of these materials are just really, really tedious to farm for and incredibly annoying. So please pace yourself and just play at your own pace. If you're stuck at mid-game for like half a year, it's not the end of the world. If you just make it to mid-game, it's fine. You can survive with mid-game augments over here for an entire year. You don't have to go all the way to endgame. However, do not stick with the free gear for more than a month. Even if you're a super casual player, you definitely want to move out of the free gear and move over to the Ecstasis armors, and then you want to upgrade all of these armors into the Tristasis, and same with your weapons, all right? You want to graduate from the Argent Cool weapons, preferably within the first week. Maybe even on the first like 3 days of playing, all right? This weapon is actually really bad and very detrimental to your gameplay and to the people you play with. You really want to upgrade that immediately to an Exalia weapon, which you can upgrade into a Trisalia weapon very quickly. As you are farming in combat zones, you'll get all the different materials needed to make this. Once you've got your Trisalia weapon, you're pretty much set, all right? You don't have to go all the way to true endgame. That is 100% optional. But mid-game, I strongly recommend that people at the very least aim for mid-game. Now, as a refresher for your mid-game stats that I recommend that most people should be aiming for is, again, you want to go above 200% potency. We can see right here, we're at 211% potency. We've got a good amount of HP. We got a good amount of PP. Actually, this PP is like really overkill, but you know, whatever. Our damage adjustment is 81% to 100%. That's really good as well. You've got a ton of damage resistance. You've got a ton of defense, a ton of attack. This is a solid build. However, again, this is all up to you, dependent on your playstyle. If you don't need so much HP, you can lower that and sacrifice it for more damage. You can sacrifice more damage for some extra PP. It's really customizable, and as long as you're comfortable playing your class and you know what you're doing, you can pretty much do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, the potency number that you're aiming for is above 200, all right? As long as you're above 200, you've made it. You are average now. However, if you are below 200, you guys definitely need to start working on that and trying to get it above 200, preferably 210. And then if you're going for endgame stuff, then that's 300% is what you're aiming for.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again.
But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.